Alright, so that's the jewel that I just punched out in the middle. So right there. Now I'm just going to move this aside for a second, and now I've got to separate the top and the bottom half of the jewel. So there it is there, and as you can see, I'm going to take a picture of it just so I make sure. Well, I guess I don't need a picture, I can see that. You can see I've separated the two, and what you got to make sure you do here is, let me flip that baby over. That's the jewel hole, that's the cap. So, and it's gold, so this thing is a gold cap, and this is probably brass on the bottom. So, and I can see that the oil is gone on that cap. So what I do is I take a small piece of pegwood, and I just wipe the jewel down like that, and I make sure that it is completely cleaned off. And I'll take a piece of Rodico to make sure there isn't any leftover stuff on it. So like I said, this is like super fine work. I'm not sure how well this looks in the camera, but I'm just going to show you what I do here just to make sure it's, there we go. And after I've done this, what I do is I just move the jewel just slightly so I can see a reflection, and the reflection should show that it's completely clean. So, and then I do the same with the other side of the jewel. So that's completely clean as well. So there's no issue there at all. So, and so that's one jewel cleaned. And now what I need to do is oil it. So you just have to put the world's smallest drop of oil on the end of that jewel. And that's why it costs like $300 to clean a watch, because these things are just time consuming and you got to have the skills to do it too. So anyway, and you can't lose parts. That's the other thing, is you got to remember where you put your stuff. So what I do is I take a little dab. This is very fine 9010 oil from Switzerland. And then I'll take that 9010 oil and I'll put it on the one side of the sandwich, the jewel sandwich I'll call it, right? So I'll make sure that this thing is in the right position here. May flip that one over. It doesn't want to flip on me. Anyway, so I'm going to put it right on the middle of the top cap, which should go like this. I just dropped, I think I dropped the world's smallest piece of oil. Actually, none stuck on there. Gee whiz. It's like, I need to put half a drop in, so the funny thing is the drop actually has to stick on my oiler first, and then when I go down, it lands on the jewel. Oh, there we go. I think I got a drop there. Oh, there we go. So I can actually see the drop there. Now that drop will stay in place for, and probably be good for about at least 5 years until the watch is cleaned again. Now again, this watch probably hasn't been cleaned in friggin' century. I don't know when the last time it was cleaned. So, and then I make sure my oiler, I do this on my oiler to get all the oil off the end of it, and I use pegwood to do that. So I just put the cap back on the oiler like that, and now I got to put the jewel back into place. So I got to zoom out again. Now, actually, it turns out I can zoom out on the side here. I'm kind of a retard. Or, as they say, mentally challenged. So what I need to do here is you want to take one out and put one in, and then take one out and put one in. So turn this plate around, and you don't want to push on the plate the way it is, because you'll end up ruining the plate. So So what I want to do here is, this is the jewel here, right, that fits in the plate, and there's a little lip. So you take this jewel, I don't know if you can see this or not, but you put this jewel down into this hole here, like that, and I've used like a staking set to push it in place, because sometimes it just is nasty. So I'm going to get a stake out and just push it in. So this, my friends, let me grab the camera here for a second. This, my friends, is a staking set, and I got to grab the right stake out of that set that fits over the top of the jewel, and then use that to push it in. So I don't need to do any hammering there, so that's all I need to do. So I select the right stake. So this is a stake I've selected here. So I just have to make sure that this, when I push this in, that it seats nicely. So I'm going to make sure I don't screw up any banking pins, or I think that's on the other side. No, there's the pins there. So when you do this sort of thing, you don't want to screw the watch up. So if I can just move it over like that until I feel the banking pins, and then I put the stake over the top, and then the jewel just snapped into place right there. So then I take the top one, right, and I have to turn that around ever so slightly here. Just tricky as hell. See how I turn that around with one hand, and then line up the little tiny screw marks, and then drop it in place. And then I'm going to get all close with my Chinese get all close devices. So I think my finger's in the way, so you can't see what I did here, but I ended up rotating that jewel in place, and then there's a lip that fits in there. So I think this is, it's not flush yet, so it needs to be flush, so I can pegwood that down probably. But I got the wrong piece of pegwood here, so I need to get the flat piece of pegwood I had 2 seconds ago, wherever the heck it is. Pause. And that's the tricky part, is getting these jewels in place. So that, my friends, is perfectly flat right now. So this is back into place and perfectly flat. So that's the one, the jewel we're looking at here is the one that's right, let me see if I can point at it, right there over underneath my piece of pegwood. So that has been oiled. So now I got to get those screws and screw that into place, and then that's one jewel. So that's how you do one jewel. So I probably won't tape all the rest. Okay, now I'm going to use my ninja-like tweezers to, I'm going to actually use Rodicos so those little tiny screws don't go flying. So I tried this before, and the technique works really well. So I take the Rodico, I grab the jewel, then so I don't scratch the plate at all with screwdrivers, I use the Rodico to just kind of put the jewel where it needs to be, like so. And if you're really good, you can actually use the end of the Rodico to start the jewel, or start the screw, which is like, this is just crazy, right? I'm not sure if this is working or not, but it's my Rodico screwdriver, I call it. And I believe I have successfully started the screw with the Rodico, and it actually is zero harm. So it actually cleans the head of the screw while you're doing this. So that's one screw down, and then on the second screw, because this stuff is so small, again, if you ping it right, you will never find the screw again. Now, my wife came in one day and saw me on my hands and knees and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm looking for the world's smallest screw." Of course, I got carpet in here, so try to find a screw in carpet. Good friggin' luck, right? Oh, I need to reshape my Rodico screwdriver here. So after I put the screw in the hole, just get the toothpick out again, line the screw up. It's kind of my own private little technique. You could do this with a screwdriver, right? I've done it with a screwdriver before, but I'm telling you right now, You ping one of these and you're lost, and then try to find another screw to fit exactly into that hole that this manufacturer has. Right? Good friggin' luck. I may have to reuse a screwdriver on this because this guy's kind of giving me problems. So I'm going to just leave this over on stuck in the Rodico. Screw the other side in, but not tight. And then I don't know, you can't really see what I'm doing here, but I'm going to screw that screw in right here, but not tight. I can't talk while I'm doing this because I'll end up. And you don't want to scratch the gold movement. There, so that's in there like that. Beautiful job. And then the other screw goes in, and then the same way, and I'm not going to tape all this because it's just a waste of tape. So, and then I'm going to take the jewel caps off these and oil that as well. Okay, this is proof of life, I call it, POL. So you see that big hole, kind of right friggin', let me see, where is it? I gotta line my finger up right there. That's the other jewel punched out. So you can see it on the ground, so I'm gonna clean that jewel as well. Proof. And again, I've got to take the world's smallest drop of oil and put it on the world's smallest jewel here. I've actually worked with smaller jewels, but not a lot. Oh, that's perfect. So that goes on there. And that's just aces, man, aces. So that's the second jewel, and then again, what I need to do is, and I've cleaned it, is got to return this jewel back to its home, which is, and I'm just going to put it on, put the jewel lightly in there for now, and that's the bottom, that's the top. So there's a little rim there. So what I'm going to do is take the jewel. And again, I'm going to drop it in here, and I need to use a piece of pegwood again to push the jewel down. Right now I'm just going to align it. I'm not going to put any pressure on because I don't want to ruin the housing of this thing, right? So it's funny how it just flips around like it. Oh, there we go. Look at that. It fell right in place. I think that's in nicely. You just have to look at the other side, and if it's level, you're good. Yeah, and it is. So that's great. And then I got to put the cap on. And again, the way I do this here is, and I've already oiled it, so I've got to line it up. So this is the tricky part. So I don't, if I drop it, I want this thing to not land so the oil gets off it. So what I do is I pick it up like this, and then I rotate it so the screw holes are lined up with a little miniature indentation. And that way when I put it down like this, and I just relieve the pressure on it, it kind of falls right into place, which is kind of what I've done there. And then I use a piece of pegwood or whatever just to line the screws up. And it's really tricky stuff. And it looks like it's a bit stuck right there, so I may have to rotate it again. These things seem to go in only one way, so if it doesn't seem to work this way, oh, there we go, it's going down there. So that's in place now, and now I'm going to push it down with a piece of pegwood. But again, what you don't want to do, because there's a base on this plate, is squish the base, and you also don't want to squish the banking pins, these little tiny pins on the bottom, and because you will end up ruining the banking pins. So I took this big giant piece of wood here, pegwood, or not wood, it's whatever it's called, it's like balsa. Anyway, I just slide that until I can feel the banking pins, and then I know I'm not interfering with that. And then I grab my piece of pegwood that's flat on the bottom, like this, and I can use that to push the jewel cap back in place. And so that fit absolutely perfectly in place. So you can see the jewel cap is in place now. See if it zooms in. There's the jewel cap without the screw holes, and then I put the screws back in, and I'll do that on. There, I got the screws kind of resting in the right place, and I got to get really close to screw these in. And if you don't do it properly, they'll go flying, and you'll be down a couple screws, like I said earlier. So I'm just trying to get these jewels to catch the plate, and I have. So what I do is I'll tighten them a little tiny bit, and then when I go to tighten them more, I'll back them off a bit so I can remember how tight it was. And then from backing them off, I'll tighten them again. So back them back, and then move them forward. And when you're screwing these in, they don't have to be super tight, they just be snug in there. And so there we go. So that's done. So these plates are done. So the only one left here on this side is this one right here, which is again the world's smallest plate. So I got to make sure I'm careful with this too. But the good news, let me check on the other side to make sure I'm not squishing anything, is that there's nothing protruding on this side of the watch plate. So what I'm going to do is remove this cap, which is it's been on there for probably 100 years. So I put a shitload of pressure on there so that when I unscrew the plate, I don't strip the screw. So, and I'm not sure if you can see any of that, but I'm just trying to pick away at this so it comes out nicely, and I don't have to. There we go. So I got the screw out. I'm going to go put it way over here. The other thing I've done in the past is been working on a. Oh, lucky I was on the other side. I've been working on a plate, and for some unknown reason, the whole damn thing comes out. So this thing here looks like it's been mangled a bit, actually. Yeah, this looks like some amateur has gotten a hold of this one as well. I hate when that happens, right? When some guy's basically taken this watch and forked it up. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of an investigation here, because I don't want to, definitely don't want to screw this plate up. Yeah, it looks like this screw here, it looks mangled just a bit, which means the previous watch guy went in there, and there we go. So the plate's off, and that protects, that's basically a jewel in this. There's a jewel on the end of this plate. If you can have a quick look at that, there we go. The center of that plate has a jewel on it, so I think you got to do this to actually there it is there, and it's got a jewel on it. How do I get that to zoom? There we go. There's a jewel on the end of that needs to be cleaned off, and then I put the plate back on, and I oil it first, and then I put it back on. So that's how it's done. So let me do that. Turn this up. Alright, so once again I'm in the petrocan oil business. So what I do is I take this world's smallest plate, and what I want to do is oil. This is the cap for the jewel, so I just have to make sure it looks like it still has some stuff on it. So make sure it's completely clean, because you don't want leftover gum or anything on this. It's got to be absolutely pristine. And so I find that if you rub it with a toothpick or some pegwood or whatever, that's going to absorb anything that's on this thing. So that's perfect right there. And then I already put oil on the end of this, so let's see if it adheres. There we go. I think this might be too much, but anyway, we shall see. So that's that. So now what I have to do, you know what? I think I put too much oil on there, so I'm going to take some off. Basically clean this off here again. And I'm going to clean it, peg it out a bit. shiner up, as they say. Yeah, because it's I don't want any leftover oil on this thing at all. That's really good. And then what I do is I just apply, I'm sorry but the quality of the video, but if I make it a better quality, it takes like 10 years to process the video. So there, that's better. That's a little tiny drop of oil on there. You don't want to over oil it either, because that will, some people say it causes friction on the watch. I don't know, not sure whether it's true or not, but it might. So that's, I don't need to really pop this jewel out because it's pretty darn clean. I pegged it out earlier and I don't think there's any reason to pull it out. So it's in mint condition. And because I'll just peg this out one more time here, make sure there's no leftover issues. So that's pretty good. There's no cracks or anything on there, and it looks like there's nothing remaining to be done. So let me zoom out here so you can see what I'm up to. So yeah, that's in really good condition. So I've oiled this cap now. So now I have to carefully grab it and place it back on the movement. Looks like there's some leftover dust or something on there, so probably from the pegwood or something. I'm going to use my Rodico and I'm going on the edges of this thing, so I don't want there to be any leftovers. I think that's just leftover oil from when I put too much on before, so that's not a problem. So I'm going to put this in, just grab this on the end like that, and then rotate it in. So I'm getting good at this one-hand rotation crap. So that's in there like that, and then all things in watches are dainty, so now all I need to do is just make sure the screw holes are lined up. And there we go. And then these screws are like the world's smallest screws. So same technique I used before is I grab the screw with this hand, or with the Rodico, and I make sure there's a clear path between me and where the screw is going, and then I can drop that screw down right in place and then hold it with a piece of pegwood, and then do the same with the other screw. One of these screws is mangled. I don't like that, but I don't believe I have another screw this size, so if I do, it'd be a friggin' blessing. But so I just have to, there we go. So both screws are in the plate, and then I just have to put these in ever so carefully. That's one, and then the second one has to go in too. That's two. All right. That plate is in place and the screws are in place, so I'm hoping there's no issue with this holding. No, I think that's good there. So that's all good, and I just saw a little piece of dust here, so I'm going to grab that. Nope, turns out it wasn't dust. Okay, so that's it. So those are jewels. Jules Verne. So those are the two jewels, or three jewels actually cleaned. And they all had cap jewels on them, so that's a necessity to clean off the cap jewels. And as you can see, it's all nicely in place. There we go there, and you can see the mangled one on the bottom there. That one on the bottom, and that's just some friggin' shitty watchmaker doing work and not taking his time. Anyway, so that's that. So this is the balance cock. So what I'm going to do is take out the mainspring on the balance, and if you look up really closely here, I also have to clean those cap jewels that are on the top. So I have to unscrew that, clean the cap jewels, and then also clean off the end of the pivots on the balance staff. So this is tricky crap. So the first thing I do in doing that is I have to move, there's a regulator arm on the edge that captures the spring, and what I got to do is move that regulator over so it's really close to where the spring is attached. So I do that by just rotating this little device here until it's as close as possible, which is almost there, right? And there we go, that should be good. And it's a little tiny screw in the end right there that I have to turn, and this turns the device, which turns the arm, which turns the little tiny regulator that I can barely point to here, but it's on this side here, and it goes, the spring sort of slides into it. It's even with this pointing bar here. So, and then after I do that, right, and working on these balance arms are just, it's so small, right? I have to loosen up the screws for the balance cock here and take this out, which is, I don't know if it's going to be possible to do this because it's, these things are on too tight. I don't want to mess with it, so I might just be able to remove the yeah, no, I can't do that either. You don't want to pop this out without having the spring out, so it's tricky stuff, and you don't want to apply too much pressure here, because if you bend the balance cock on this thing, then you're really screwed. You don't, basically won't be able to there we go. You won't be able to the watch will not work properly if it's bent. Alright, so I just had to loosen one, thank God. And then the spring, it should come right out here, but here we go. Come on, baby. Come on out. Come on out. It's like it's like a groundhog, basically, right? So it's out now. So I take my tweezers. You can't really see it because I got my hands in the way. Oh, it fell down. That's good. So there we go. So there it is. There's the spring. So this is the balance for the watch. That's the balance. And if I'm lucky enough to get it to focus, I'll just put it in the back of my hands here. So there's the balance there. And so the pivot on the end, I need to clean the pivot. The spring is in great condition. So I clean the pivot on both ends. There's the roller table, the roller jewel, the double roller, all that wonderful stuff. I've replaced roller jewels before, no big deal. Well, it's actually really hard, but I've done it a few times now, so I'm getting better at it, because you got to use those flames and everything else. So anyway, that's that. So I'll just put this on the piece of paper over here so I don't lose it. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, what I need to do is take the jewel out on the top and then clean that, because it's probably, see, if you look at it again up close, you'll see there's that's the base there, that's the top, and I just have to remove those two screws and then clean it. Geez, my hands look 1,000 years old when up close, but I think everyone's hands look old up close. Do I talk too much? Do I talk too much? Anyway, so, and I'm going to just put this down here. The other thing too is while you put this down, there's a little thing, two little rails here that go along the spring, and you don't want to squish that down while you're putting pressure on the screws to remove the screws. So again, you can lean it over the side of this thing. Some people probably use a block or a bench block or something to do that, but I prefer doing this and just being really careful in doing it. So when I remove these screws, I don't screw up the, I can't remember the name of that, but there's two little pieces of metal and the spring slips between them, and then I just got to loosen them. Jesus, these things are tight. It slips between them, and then let me see, is this too big? I think Hercules himself put these friggin' screws in. This is stupid. Oh yeah, these things have been screwed down like they're probably too big for the movement, and some moron. Seems like there's a lot of morons that do watch repair. Anyway, so there we go. So those are out. So anyway, I just use my Rodico again. Put this screw way over so I don't stick it to my hand. I remember looking for screws once. I was like, where is that screw? And then I look at the friggin' my arm, and the screw is stuck to my arm. There we go. See? So you pick it out like that, and then put it over here, and then I'm gonna just leave it stuck to the Rodico, I think, for now. And then I've got the same situation I had before. I've got a cap on here, and I've got this, so I can again use the pegwood. I should be able to punch this out with a pegwood, right? If the pegwood fits. Actually, looks like it's a bit too big. Depends how tight this thing is, right? So the other thing is I can do is shave down the pegwood to make sure it fits the hole, or I can go get one of the punches and then use it. But I can actually shape the pegwood on the back so it's flat, and then push the thing out. I also have jewel pushers, which is a little tiny. I'll grab the jewel pusher just to show you. So I went to grab the jewel pusher and I grabbed the sleeve wrench instead. Ha 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 ha! Watchmaker joke. Anyway, sleeve wrenches are for replacing the when you're working on the movement itself. You can use a sleeve wrench for basically replacing crowns and stuff. So what I did is I went into my set and I picked out. Let's see if this came out here. Oh, here's the top of it. So I'm part way out. I may have to get a smaller one here. Doesn't seem to be pushing it out all the way. So, but anyway, I got a punch. I got my one of my punches here to push it out. I'm gonna have to get a smaller one here. It doesn't seem to be pushing it out, unless I can use a piece of a friggin' toothpick or something and get it the rest of the way. No, I don't want to crack the jewel, so I'm going to get another one, a smaller one. So I'm going to play it safe and stake this baby out. So the first thing you do is you align it with the staking set with the center thing. So the wheel is typically loose here, like this, and then you just sort of line it so I can pick one where the jewel will fall out the bottom, and then I can tighten that, and then that's the alignment stake. And then I want to pick a stake that's smaller than the one I had before, where I can put some weight onto that jewel and not worry about it cracking or whatever. So I'm not sure which one I need here, but maybe a smaller one than I had before. I think this one here might do. So what I want to do is stake that out. So there it is there. Now, do I have enough movement? No, I got to pick a smaller one than this. Even smaller. Damn. What is it with these things? And you got to make sure you don't pick one that's concave or convex, because if you pick a convex one, you'll end up frigging up the jewel. So, which I don't want to do. You gotta be very careful doing that too, right? And usually just some hand pressure, and there it is. So I just pushed it out, and there's a hole there, so I just use a little bit of pressure on the hand and pushed it out. And I'm going to keep the stake out so I can use it again after to put it back in. So that's it there. It fell through. The other part is, don't lose it, don't lose it. The other part is right there. So there's the two parts of the jewel, and if you don't pay attention, it ends up on the carpet. And I'm pretty good. I haven't lost a lot of things on carpets. So just put that down on the floor, and I'll just move the camera back again. So there's a nice watch, eh? Look at that baby. Anyway, so I'll just move it down again a bit and move it back. There we go. And so there's the jewel and in place. And what I have to do now is, same as I did before, is clean the jewel itself and then clean the cap. It looks like there's absolutely no oil left on that cap. So it's like 1,000 years of use, and it's dried out, completely dried out. So what I'll do is same as I did before, clean the cap, do it all, put it back together. The other thing I want to do with this is make sure I've pegged out the hole properly. So even though I did it before, actually I've never pegged this hole out. So to make sure I peg this hole out with this little tiny piece of pegwood, and I can tell because the end of the pegwood will be the shape of the hole. So that's completely pegged out. And I can use the same piece of pegwood and just get rid of the residual oil from yesteryears. And I can see, actually I can see it really well, so this is great. And now the end of that jewel is completely clean. It's a mint condition. And just like before, as I showed you, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the end and try not to swamp it. So perfect. So a little dot of oil there. So the oil that was on there before was like, there was nothing actually. It was oil free. So, and that can wear out your pivots on the balance. So you don't want that to happen. So then when I put this back, right, I got to make sure that it goes the right way. So it's going to go on. It's going to go back in like this. Right, it looks like the last guy scratched this too, eh? So someone did some shoddy work on this watch. I'm not sure who it was, but Gerrys, whoever took this watch and did work on it, needs to get a kick in the butt. It didn't look like they had the proper tools to put it back properly. So it actually looks like they forced stuff in, or this, because I can see scratches on it, right? So there shouldn't be any scratches on this at all. So anyway, I got that in there. So I want to push it down, but I want to push it down properly. So what I'll do is get the staking set out again, and I want to make sure I'm doing it right. So I know it's already lined up, so there's no problem there. So I just have to take it out like this. I think this is the right. There are two stakes here. I just have to make sure I use the smaller of the two. I think this is the smaller one. Yeah. So, and I would typically peg that in, but I'm not too worried about this part getting scratched or anything. So that stake's a bit big. It could push on the jewel, which I don't want. And this stake that's perfect. So I snap that into place. So yeah, that's good. So that's in place. And then I don't want to scratch the top of this, so what I'll do is, where's my pliers? Is I want to roll that jewel into, it's going to be the longest video ever. So anyway, I'm going to roll that jewel. I've already oiled it. So just like before, I'm going to pick it up and rotate it. See if I can do this very carefully. To rotate it well, there's still pressure on the jewel. It's like friggin' tough. I'm like a master or something. Ninja. Master Ninja. I'm J Ninja D. Richard Ninja D. Alright, so now it's kind of over the hole, but that's not too bad there. I want to make sure it's lined up though, so this is tricky stuff. I'm going to use a bit of putty here, or another piece of pegwood, so when I turn this it doesn't jump out on me. And I want to line the grooves of the line up the grooves. Alright, so I think that this thing is 360 degrees the wrong way. So I have to turn it around. Anyway, I'm going to take this out so I can do, or turn it off for a second so I can line. Alright, I got it lined up now. And I think I want to peg it into place. But again, like I said before, you got to watch that you don't crush these little timing levers that are on the end there. Because if you push on that, and these little levers are on the wrong side, you can frig it up. I'm trying to keep my English, trying to keep it to non-swearing. There we go. That's flush, and I'll just show you there for a second. So you can see that that is now flush, and there's a little bit of oil in between, sandwiched between the jewel and the cap for the jewel, right? So that's well done, Martha. So now all I need to do is put these two little screws back, which again, I use my Rodico technique to just move them in place. So I'm going to turn it off, get the screws back in. Alright, so the screws are back in place, and now I'm just going to pick up the balance here, and I'm going to peg out the pivots in the end, because I think from looking at them earlier, they're in pretty good condition, so I don't need to do any serious work on any pivots here today. So just peg these, or take a little bit of Rodico and then just put the end of them a bit, one side and then the other side. You got to be really gentle when you're working with this. It's a double roller. And then I want to just jam these into the pegwood just a bit to make sure we're good. I heard some guy say that I put the watch together and I forgot to peg out the pivots. And I was like, who doesn't peg out pivots when they put a watch together? So friggin' nerdy. I think I used to be cool when I was younger. Anyway, so that's that. And now the very, very tricky part I find is to put the friggin' regulator back in so it's lined up with the little holes and all that kind of crap. So I don't want you watching me do this because it's going to make me nervous. So I'm going to do this and then I'll be back. I'll be back. So what I have to do here is slide this. I'll just show you a little bit of how I do it. So I have to slide this in, but I have to make sure the spring hooks into the two little pieces of metal that are also there for the regulator arm. So it's so friggin' tricky to do this. It's and you got to make sure while you're doing this that you don't hurt the pin on this side. So it's probably the hardest thing to do. You just sort of line all that up and then you push that in and then you line this up, and sometimes it takes me half an hour to do this. Anyway, alright, all I gotta say is holy frack, I did it. It was not easy. It's funny how that look at that happens. There's a frequency of this flashlight. Anyway, I'm gonna turn it off. So I got it back together, which is excellent. I was kind of concerned because it was so difficult to put in, and we just pop that back on the balance holder here. So there it is there. So now I must reassemble the watch piece by the piece. So I'm going to see if I can do that by reversing the process, which is tricky sometimes. So first thing I did when I took this watch apart was I need to put the mainspring back in. Anyway, I'm going to reassemble this thing. I'm not sure if I want to film it all.